Hello, Pepe. Hello, Ugo. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm sorry I'm not there, and sorry that this is not even live. It's canned, but this is a European Parliament election time, and it is a time of extreme stress. I have the great honor of having been banned in Germany, and therefore I spent quite a lot of time with my German lawyers. But thankfully, I haven't been banned in Italy by the Meloni government, not yet. One never knows when the next ban is going to come. But, anyway, allow me to address the topic of the conversation today without, of course, failing to mention some of the bans, the German bans, repercussions and connections with the theme. Now, to the extent that I understand what you're discussing today, I think it's clear that there is a tongue-in-cheek, almost humorful element to your title. Who benefits from peace? It reminds me of something the Monty Python. Those of you who remember the British comedians. What has peace ever done for us? Well, let's be a bit more somber about this now. War becomes necessary in extractive societies like ours when the ruling class botches the peace. Peace today is bad for business because of policies which, over the last 20 years, have caused Europe to stagnate. And not only to stagnate, but to miss, I think, its last chance. I think we've missed the chance, that there's never going to be another chance of creating a democratic federation, essentially going from a common currency to a common federation. I think that chance was there in 2010, 11, 12. It's no longer there due to the policies of the Troika under Mrs. Merkel, Schäuble, Monti, Renzi, Papandreou, Tsipras, and so on. And this, I think, is the reason why the European Union is slowly turning, not that slowly actually, into a war union, a totalitarian war union. It is part of this conversion that has had this very interesting repercussion to my life. Only this morning, my lawyer in Germany had to file, as I mentioned earlier, essentially a writ. I'm taking the German authorities to court. And I'm doing this because it is the only way of putting the brakes on this inexorable slide of Europe towards totalitarianism. You may have heard that on the 12th of April there was going to be a conference which we co-organized, Mero 25, our political party, which, by the way, also exists in Italy, and we hope to overturn the Meloni government's attempts to stop Mero 25 and others from running together in the European Parliament election in Italy. I close the bracket. Anyway, there was going to be this conference on Palestine. The question was, how can equal political rights be guaranteed to everyone? Jews, Palestinians, Bedouins, Armenians, Christians, Muslims, whatever, atheists, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. And what really peeved the German authorities was that Mero 25 co-organized that Palestine Congress for the 12th and 13th of April in Berlin with the Jewish Voice for Peace. So the main organizers were Jewish comrades, German Jewish comrades, therefore making it very silly for the political establishment in Germany to accuse us of anti-Semitism. They did go ahead with those accusations, but they were rendered ridiculous by the fact that they were accusing Jews, progressive Jews, of being anti-Semites. Anyway, the police violently broke up that Congress. A few minutes before I was due to address the Congress via video link, Zoom, Skype, whatever. And after that violent breakup, the organizers were informed that if they dare transmit my voice, even in a canned form like you are doing today, then I would be facing the wrath of the German state and they would be broken up as an organization. Just clear as that. Anyway, my lawyer after many failed attempts to contact the authorities, talked to the authorities and asked for a written statement from the authorities. Just 3 questions to be answered. Very simple questions. Which authority banned me? When? And on what grounds? The German authorities replied to my lawyer that within 48 hours we would get a reply. But 48 hours later, we got the reply that there will be no reply. And the explanation why there would be no reply was national security, and I quote, because any written reply would undermine the proper performance of the duties of the federal police and other security services involved in the case, other security services. In other words, the authoritarian practices of Viktor Orban in Hungary, of Mitsotakis here in Greece, of the ones you're going to be facing under Meloni or facing already, these authoritarian practices are being adopted freely in the bastions of liberal democracy like Berlin. Right? Authorities are violating basic freedoms and sidestepping the right of citizens to know who decided to ban them, when, and under what rationale. And all that in a European Union, which was supposed to guarantee our political freedoms and our right to free movement. I am not allowed to go to Germany for reasons that they told me they will not tell me. Now, this is a clear violation of German and European law, and that's why I'm taking them to court. The documents that we submitted, I think, are a service to German and European citizens who cherish their political freedoms, their democratic rights, and also the right to move around freely in the European Union. So my party in Germany is running, and I do not have the right to go and support them in Berlin, in Stuttgart, in Aachen, wherever. Anyway, the point I tried to introduce right at the beginning was that this is a very isolated but quite typical symptom of the stagnation of Europe, of the failure of Europe, of the decline of Europe. Now, why am I arguing that this decline was the result of the last 20 years of policies? Well, think about it. For 20 years, austerity for the many, across Europe, not just in the south of Europe, in the pigs, right, but also in Germany. The purpose of Schäuble was to take austerity from here, take it to Greece, take it to Ireland, Portugal, Spain, Italy, and then eventually smuggle it into Germany, which they did. So you had 20 years of austerity for the many combined with socialism for the bankers, for the finances. Now that combination crashed investment across Europe. Why would Volkswagen or Siemens or BASF invest substantial quantities of money in goods and services that the many out there can't afford? So they took the money and they went to the stock exchange, Frankfurt, London, whatever, and they bought back their own shares, but they did not invest. Some of us, those of us who found, however briefly, ourselves in ECOFIN, in the Eurogroup and so on, we tried to avert that. We proposed Eurobonds, smart investment blueprints to mobilize the central bank's money tree so as to fund green technology, green energy, education, health. But the ruling classes were not interested. Not just the German ones, but the Italian ones as well, or the Greek ones. But why are they not interested? Could they not see that their Europe was a pyramid, a pyramidal scheme, that when the many can't spend, there will be no growth, no jobs, no future? Did the so-called Europeanists not see that their shenanigans were turning Europe into America's vassal? Yes, of course they could see it. But it was not a mistake. Ladies and gentlemen, my point is that Europe's decline wasn't caused by the European system's breakdown. It occurred because the European Union system performed exactly as it was designed. What do I mean by that? Here's the gist of it. America's and Europe's ruling classes have been proceeding since the 1970s on the basis of what I call a dark deal. A dark deal which they struck back then after the fall of the Bretton Woods system. It's a simple deal. It started with America's expanding trade deficit, which acted like a huge vacuum cleaner that sucks into the United States Europe's exports, including Italian exports. European capitalists, therefore, depend on the American trade deficit for their dollar profits. Unable to spend dollars in Italy, in Greece, in Germany, they send their dollars back to Wall Street to lend to the United States government. They buy US Treasury bills, to buy shares in Wall Street, and particularly to purchase real estate in California, Miami, New York, elsewhere. That's the dark deal. America is keeping European capitalists rich as long as they send their dollar profits to America to fund Washington, to keep Wall Street liquid, and to keep American rentiers in luxury. But to continue getting dollar rich, European capitalists need the euro to plunder poorer Europeans. But they do not want a euro that competes with the dollar, since their profits depend on the dollar's exorbitant privilege, supremacy. This is why Europe's ruling class will back any war demanded by the United States military-industrial complex. That's perhaps the darkest aspect of the dark deal. Now we begin to see why Europe's ruling class condone things that damage them and their countries. I'm sure that deep down they're not very happy to see Israel demolishing Gaza and killing tens of thousands of children. But they won't protest. Why? For the same reason they didn't protest. German industrialists did not protest when the Americans blew up Nord Stream 1, causing much economic pain to German industry. Now we know that it was the United States behind Nord Stream 1's explosion, right? So it's simple. America's deficits line the pockets with dollars of European capitalists. And they use those dollars to accumulate wealth in the United States. So put simply, we are ruled by a European ruling class whose wealth accumulates on the Atlantic's other side. So is it any wonder that their allegiance also lies on the Atlantic's other side? That's when the United States seized upon Putin's cruel invasion of Ukraine to fuel a never-ending war. And Europe's rulers rolled over, even if they understood it was detrimental to Europe's interests to have a permanent war in Ukraine. This is why Europe's ruling class, our oligarchs, would even send their own children to the trenches to be slaughtered, or imprison them if they dared protest too loudly in our universities. Because their hypocrisy is mind-numbing. They say they do not want debt. You keep going on about how terrible debt is, especially common debt. But they bend over backwards to produce more debt for themselves and their kind. They say that they hate the money tree, the monetary money tree, the central bank printing presses. But they use them, they pluck this money tree energetically when it comes to spending billions on weapons or lining the pockets of the financiers who transport their dollar profits to Wall Street. They scream blue murder when Ukrainians are invaded, when the Ukrainian land is occupied. Hospitals in Mariupol are flattened. But they consider it just justifiable homicide when the invaders adorn Israeli uniforms simply because that doesn't annoy the United States. This hypocrisy is not only a moral insult to the direct victims of war and genocide in Palestine, Ukraine, Yemen, Syria, Kashmir, don't forget Kashmir. It's also a clear and present danger for our people in Italy, in Greece, in Germany, across Europe. Lies and orchestrated industrial-scale hypocrisy is the starting point of internal tyranny and external wars, and we need to expose it to save our people from despotism, to save our people from poverty, from the insecurity that warmongering is intended, is designed to cultivate. So, allow me to go back to the very beginning. I'm also, I have to confess, influenced by my personal circumstances. Here in Europe, we are in the midst of a long, very fast slide to totalitarianism, to authoritarianism. The European Parliament elections in June will not stop it. All we can do is place some voices in Brussels that will inspire Europeans to stiffen their lip and to organize better across borders. This is why I'm running in the European Parliament election in Greece, so I'm not asking for your vote. But just informing you as to my rationale at this stage of my life, even though I'm very tired of politicking and electoral politics and all that. But if some of us manage to get to the European Parliament to expose all those stooges of NATO, of the military-industrial complex, all the enablers of Israel, all the shadowy salesmen of weapons of mass destruction, real and financial weapons of mass destruction, right? All those people who have for 20 years condemned Europe to stagnation by denying us basic macroeconomic financial instruments that would have done the job, the trick of funding a Green New Deal for Europe, which is, of course, has never been funded. Ursula von der Leyen's Green Deal is a figment of her imagination, of her very lunatic imagination, that warmonger who dared represent us Europeans in front of Israeli tanks before they invaded Gaza. So if you send some of us that are running with Mera 25 in Greece, in Italy, in Germany, if you send Claire Daly and Mick Wallace, my comrades and friends, and DM25 and Mera 25 collaborators in Ireland, representing Ireland to the European Parliament, we are going to ask them directly. Ask the powers that be. What did you really expect would happen in a Europe where austerity and massive money printing for the very, very rich, the financiers, becomes the order of the day? We shall look at Ursula von der Leyen in the eye and tell them, we have no common values, either with you or with Israel. Your values, as well as Netanyahu's values, are closer to those of the South African apartheid mobsters, indeed to the Ku Klux Klan, not to Europe's values. We shall then continue to tell all these pretend Europeanists, from the center-right, from the center-left, that this Europe has become essentially the stupid continent, the continent that has fallen behind technologically, financially, politically, and these days morally. It's a very small objective to look at them in the eye and disturb them. But in a Europe where the left is non-existent, it has in many cases become complicit in the never-ending war in Ukraine and the genocide of the people of Palestine, the loss of democratic rights. Let me remind you that my comrades of Die Linke didn't come in my support. Indeed, they supported the banning of our Palestine Congress in Berlin. That just goes to show the length and depth of the left's depravity in Europe now. Given this situation, we can't promise Europeans that these European Parliament elections can make a substantial change. Except we can promise that those of us who haven't surrendered to the logic of the war union, of the austerity union, of the racist union, of the anti-migrant union, we will, if given a chance by voters, we are going to make their life very difficult at particular moments in the European Parliament's life, and hopefully use it as a large forum, or if you want, loudspeaker, to inform the rest of Europe of what exactly is happening, all the crimes that are being committed in their name behind their back. Because if war relies on lies in order to be perpetuated, then maybe a voice telling truths, uncomfortable truths, maybe, but definitely truths, may be the harbinger, a necessary but of course not sufficient condition for peace, a peace that works for the many, not for the few. Thank you.